Well, I hate to have to talk about this, but we're going to have to talk about, once again, crime in our parks. This is becoming an issue on Long Island that's getting worse, and because it does have to do with the environment, we have to talk about it. We've had in the past by Edgewood Preserve, not in Edgewood Preserve, but by Edgewood Preserve in the woods over in this area here, by Pilgrim. We've had gang activity and murders there from MS-13. Um, and we've had activity at Massapequa Preserve over here. However, with this activity, it took place only once, and it got a lot of coverage because this is Massapequa after all, and because a certain demographic lives here. The news goes out of their way to interview everybody in the community to talk about what happened. But unfortunately, we've had another incident. This was in a much smaller park, but still disturbing nonetheless because it happened in Old Bethpage. And in Old Bethpage, there's a little park called Haypath Park. It's a very small park, but it's a little pretty park. I haven't been there in a long time, but it's actually a very pretty park. And unfortunately, what wound up happening was there was an incident involving a young man getting killed. It was a botched robbery. It was a drug deal gone wrong in this park. Yes, a drug deal. None of the people lived in this is the park right here. None of the people lived in Old Bethpage. They were all from other areas of the island, and the one man from Staten Island was charged with the murder. So we're gonna go to News 12's website, and we're gonna actually put Haypath Park shooting there, right there. It shows up. So here's the story. So a 20-year-old man was fatally shot, all right, at Haypath Park, all right. And this is some of the story here. So we can look at the patch article here and show you what happened. So this is the park that it happened in. So we're gonna wait for this to load. And this is the man that was charged with the shooting death. I was waiting for it to load. Again, I do apologize for my computer being very slow, but this is the man who shot somebody to death over a drug deal gone bad. And this is what's happening in our parks on Long Island. This is really sad. There was a botched robbery of a drug dealer, basically. They were trying to rob a drug dealer, basically. And what wound up happening was a person who had nothing to do with it except that he was friends with one of the people involved wound up getting shot to death. And this is a really sad situation here. And this is the park that it happened in. It's a very small park, but again, you go to the park and you want to, let's see if we can get some pictures here, what it looks like. You go to the park and you want to relax, and instead what happens is, here's a picture here. And yes, there are some pitch pines here too, you can see right here. You want to go to the park, you want to enjoy nature, and then this happens. It's really sad. We have criminal activity going on in our parks. And News 12 did not really interview anyone in the community. I'm sure people in this community must be shocked. It's supposed to be a very safe area, and they must be absolutely shocked that this happened. Let's see if we can see what it looks like from this end here. Yeah, there's an entrance here, so you can sort of see what it looks like. Why is there a branch hanging there? But the News 12 didn't interview anyone in the community. They didn't speak with anyone. The police are not bringing up having additional patrols. Yeah, when something happens in Massapequa Preserve, boy, it gets coverage. But Haypath, yes, it was the first story, but News 12 only spent a minute on it. And instead, they'd rather talk about our president because, again, News 12 yields to that certain demographic. And I don't talk about this stuff anymore. But when it comes to our environment, and we see what goes on in Deer Park with the garbage, being dumped there, and not being able to get any action on that. Seeing the homeless people live in the woods. Yet, if something happens in Massapequa Preserve, it gets coverage. They speak to people in the community because it's Massapequa, because a certain demographic lives there. The white finance professionals. Yet Old Bethpage, which has some money in it too, but it's not completely lily white, so therefore it's going to get neglected. And it's just the same kind of thing. And you go to the woods, you go to a park to relax. The last thing you want to have to worry about is being robbed or being shot. And this is what's happening in our parks on Long Island. And it does, the crime problems are affecting our environment now because they're happening in our parks. And there's other crime going on in our parks. Miller's Pond Park in Smithtown. So they've been dead roosters have been found there. So Miller's Pond is over here. This is Smithtown, of course. It's not on the South Shore, middle of the island, or maybe a little more toward the North Shore. But again, it's the same kind of thing here. It's a nice little park, and is that a shack? Well, they got homeless people living in there now? What's going on? So here's the pond right here. I don't know what that is over there, but it's supposed to be a pretty little lake, and now, again, you got to go in here and you got to worry about seeing satanic cults going on in the parks here. All right, you know this wouldn't happen on the South Shore, but it's happening here. Of course, it's happening here in the middle of the island. So here's the pond right here. Looks like a nice, pretty pond. Again, this is what we have to. This is what we have to deal with. When are we going to say enough is enough already? And this is completely unacceptable. This is completely unacceptable. So I figured I'd make a brief video about it. We can go to News 12 Long Island and just go to that thing and show you the story that they have. So see, it's interesting. Look at the stories when I Google. Look at what happens. There's only one local story here. All right, even when I hit the Google site. All right. And you've got to wait for it to load here. So here is the story here, the Staten Island. We're not going to play the video, but this is the story they had here. So none of these people were from, I'm not going to play this, but none of these people were from Long Island. The Staten Island guy, he shot somebody from Huntington. They were all hanging out in this park. 4 arrested in connection. So I will provide links to the story, but this is where it happened, right here in Haypath Road Park, right here. But why is this happening in our parks? Why are there not being patrols? Where are the police? Why aren't the police here? Yeah, they're here after the fact. Why weren't they patrolling here and seeing that there was suspicious activity and drug deals going on in this park? Why weren't they doing that? We know they'd be there if it was on the South Shore, but no, because it's the middle of the island, they don't care. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of this. The Pine Barrens lie in the middle of the island, and we can't have this stuff going on in our parks. All right, this is just another example of the corruption and favoritism that I don't really want to talk about anymore, but because it has to do with the environment, I have to bring it up. So we see what happens in Deer Park with the trash and the homeless people living there, and nothing is done. But if it was on the South Shore, well, we got to make the finance professionals feel safe. But this they don't care. So again, really sad situation here that's happened, and somebody lost their life, which really makes it really even that much sadder. So it's just another example how Wall Street controls our government and how they're looking out for their own kind, while because the Pine Barrens are in the middle of the island, nobody really cares. I mean, when they found those bodies in Pilgrim near Edgewood, did they interview anyone at that were hiking and visiting Edgewood Preserve? No, they didn't. They didn't interview anyone because they just don't care, because it's not that demographic. Meanwhile, on the South Shore in Massapequa Preserve, guess what the police are doing? They even have cameras. That's right. I'm going to put the video. Well, you can look in the card this video in here. Yes, they have Nassau Police is putting surveillance cameras in Massapequa Preserve so people feel safe in Massapequa Preserve. What about all the other preserves? No, they're only looking out for their own kind on the South Shore because we have a bunch of people in our government that are only looking out for Wall Street. This is the problem, and they're only looking out for Wall Street, so they're not going to be looking out to stop global warming because Wall Street and big oil are tied. They're married to each other, and this is the problem with our government. We got to vote these Wall Street people out. I don't care. If I get some hate for this, I really don't, because I still feel the same way I always have, and that is there is tremendous corruption in this state and in this nation and in this county and in our towns to give Wall Street people what they want, to cater to them, to give them what they want, and to make them give them the best of everything, while we in the middle of the island and other kinds of people get neglected and get discriminated against. It's all part of that. I don't talk about it much, but because it involves our parks, and because certain parks on Long Island are getting taken care of better because they are in areas where a certain demographic lives, while parks in the middle of the island get neglected because it's not a lily-white area full of finance professionals. Yeah, it's going to come up because it's affecting our environment. So a very tragic thing that happened in Haypath Park. Something that could have been prevented had the police and had there been cameras installed, had they been watching what's going on. To think that there are drug deals going on in our neighborhood parks is absolutely disturbing and unacceptable. And this is exactly why we need strict enforcement of the law for every community, not just certain communities, but for every community, because everybody deserves to be safe when they're trying to enjoy nature and forget about the chaos that is going on around them. The last thing we need to do when we go to our parks is to worry about our safety. We're supposed to relax. If you can't go into a park and escape from the problems, where can you go? That's it. Take care.